Carthage must be destroyed. We are going to look at the Clash of Spears walkthrough once again today. We are looking at soldiers and war gear. And in this section, soldiers and war gear, there are different weapons that we can look at. There are some different traits that are used in active combat, and there's also some disposition traits as well. Oh, and there's also armor, of course. Now, I'm not going to go through every single thing in this section, so I think this video will be fairly short and straightforward, because I think a lot of the weapons and gear and stuff, it varies between army and army. So I don't think it's a great idea to go through every single little detail. But there are just a few things in this book that I want to just talk about when you look at the soldiers and war gear. It talks here briefly about weapons and what kind of weapons soldiers would carry. It gives you a bit of a description of how every soldier has a kind of a specified weapon, a shield and hand weapons. I guess it depends how they're equipped, right? But one thing they say in there is that everyone's assumed to have a hand weapon, and if they need to pull out their hand weapon, they can do so relatively easy without any issue. Now, they do say in the book here, and I'll start flipping through here so you don't have to just look at this part here, that basically the unit's fighting stats represent both how well they fight with a weapon and the quality of weapon. So there's no like level of quality for weapons in this game. You know, a sword is a sword, a dagger's a dagger. It doesn't matter if there's rust or anything on it. None of that really matters in this game. It also talks about initiative, and you'll see when we start looking at melee weapons here that some weapons have an initiative value to it, and if you got a higher initiative value, some traits will allow you to act first or act accordingly to follow that initiative value. I think also, when I start flipping into weapons here, the saves can be modified by some weapons here, and I'll just show you guys quickly. When you're reading the book, you can see hand weapons. They give you just a short description of the different weapon they have. Here's initiative 1 and save mod 0. The save mod is essentially the modification to the armor that the weapons cause. If you keep looking down here, you'll see you get a double-handed axe. It still has initiative 1, but you're going to be -2 on attacking enemies. So their save is dropped by 2, right? So that's a typical thing where heavier weapons, like double-handed weapons, cause mods. So just give you a quick look at things. I am not going to go through every single rule here because I just think it's not time worthy. I mean, if you would play in one army, they may not have access to certain weapons. So you guys get the book and research it yourself. I'm just showing you guys the different weapons in here and the descriptions. I mean, I'm just going to flip through this fairly quickly. This is ancient warfare here, or I should say classical warfare here. So a lot of their weapons and stuff are going to be reflecting there's that classical warfare like Pila and Xiphos and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to have like medieval type weapons. If they make expansions, of course, they probably add them in and put in rules for that. Although something like a double-handed axe probably can translate, no matter what era, into a -2 mod, right? Armor saves, okay? They get into armor here, and they start talking about the shields and the like. Talks about how you can calculate the best save stat for a unit. You add the number of armor points corresponding to the armor of the soldier and subtract the total from 7. So they give you kind of an example here, okay? So troops that have no armor have an effective roll of 7, and they're only going to save on 6s, okay? We talked about that earlier, but here they give you a quick example. It's easier to show examples sometimes. Troops armed with heavy shield and partial armor would have a save stat of 3 because the heavy stat is 2 points of armor, partial armor is 2 points. So the total 4 points of armor. So 7 minus 4 becomes a 3 and up. So they have a different point system, and we'll just look quickly at the points here. And if you continue on, you start to see that there's armor points for like something like a buckler, shield, heavy shield, partial armor, and full armor. Now this is, I guess, if you're going to be making some of your own troops. There are handily a lot of the troops in the back. I actually am not sure if you can make your own troops, but I would just follow the back. Make army lists from the back, and it makes sense, right? I'm not going to get into all these I'm not going to get into all of these details of the shields and stuff. I will point out that the buckler can't be used in range attack. It's more of a melee weapon. And they do have a chart here where it's basically going to give you the stats on what they're holding. So I guess if you're not showing the save stats, just use this formula, base it off the points here, and subtract it from 7, and then you will get your save value. Then there's traits. Units have traits, and those things will do different things in different battles. There's martial traits, which are obviously going to be used more so in battle, and then there's disposition traits coming up, which are more like I think it's like unit stats and stuff like that. We'll just look at a few here. So you know, there's got an aim shot here. You might be drilled, and you'll see here that they'll tell you what they require and how it affects your unit, which is really handy because sometimes you see a rule in some rule books. They say like, okay, so this unit's drilled. We got to read the whole thing here, and you can read it and try and remember it. But it's nice to have a little, I think, in parentheses here, something that reminds you what it affects exactly. So when you look it up later, if you've forgotten, oh yeah, okay, it's closed order only. So you may, you know, you can just kind of look it up and realize, okay, it affects you only in this area. And it does that for everything here. It tells you little notes on where it can be used, right? There's extra equipment rules. Like I said, I won't go through all of that. Guerrilla warfare, impetus. A lot of these things are also, I find, in a lot of the same rules. Like, you always have some drilled unit or some unit that can shoot better. Impulso. I don't even say that. I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Oh, cool. Okay, that's the Pilum rule, I guess. Okay, yeah, I'm just just kind of browsing it because I'm interested in that one. As a Roman player, that's what you want, or a Spanish player. It's basically their Pila rule. Some people deal the Pila in rules where they give -1 to some armor. But in here it says enemy troops in close order that are forced to test morale due to throwing spear missile attacks from enemies at 1d6 in their morale test. So it's kind of like a moral tester here. Okay, that's kind of cool. There's things like mass charge, Macedonian drill. They have rules about being mounted in here. And they give you a whole bunch of stats. So if you want to see the difference between mounted troops and how they work versus infantry, this is where you'd want to check. Because otherwise most troops work like how we talked about they worked in the previous chapters in combat and actions. Whereas like the additional rules for mounted troops and stuff are going to be in here, right? So for example, there's mounted troops moving 8 inches in loose order. Close order they're only moving 4. So it just gives you the differences if they're mounted or not. And I mean every unit will tell you obviously it's a cavalry unit or mounted or not. There's a whole bunch like shield overlapping skirmishers, sling specialists. Here's the one I was talking about, wall of spears. You need a spear or spike, and you have spear or spike and close order affects hold. Okay, so you can only use the wall of spears if you have those weapons are in that formation, and then it only affects the hold. Like if you're a wall of spears, you're not gonna counter attack, I guess, right? Kind of makes no sense. But you get kind of like if you have a higher weapon initiative than the attackers, you get to roll a bunch of d6, and you can modify some things, and then you can check it out for yourself later. Then there's disposition traits, and it's more of the natural characteristics as they describe it here. Here you can see you get something like different rules, like allies here affects force breaks test results, or determined endurance. There's things like feral. Feral's probably some wild attacking type thing. I'm not going to get into all these, as I said. Here you can see how different things are going to affect your morale. This one affects you if you're in loose order. So yeah, these are more like things that affect the natural things that affect the natural abilities or personalities of different troops. So, oh, and there's some physical traits here at the end too. I guess there's the third one. And I think a lot of these ones are probably going to be seen on characters that have multiple attacks and multiple wounds. But there may be some tough soldiers, I haven't checked. But maybe there's some tough soldiers that have multiple attacks or more wounds, okay? So yeah, that's basically it for the weapons and the traits and armor, stuff like that in this little section of the walkthrough I wanted to do. I didn't want to get too heavily into that because, like I said, every army is different. And I think it would take a long time to go through every single detail. So you guys you can read through that yourself. It's fairly straightforward, I think. And once you apply it to the rules we walked through before, it'll be easier to look at. The other section of this book that I do not want to get into too deep is the other tools of war. And this basically covers elephants and light chariots. And the reason I don't want to really get into them too heavily is because both of those unit types are indeed other. What I mean by that is that not every army has access to them. So again, that's a very specific army, I think, that gets access to them. It's probably going to be Numidians and Carthaginians if you're doing the Punic War scenarios, and then it would be the British Celts or some of the earlier Celts with light chariots. Maybe some of the Punic War Carthaginians if you're doing really, really early Carthaginians, or or maybe adapt the game to Trojan stuff or something, chariot warfare. So these rules are in the book, and they do have some very specific rules for elephants and light chariots. But I personally am not going to get into it, so I think it's a little more specialized for the more generic walkthrough stuff. I just wanted to share the cool pictures and to let you guys know that there are elephants. They even have rules for elephant passengers if you want to look that up. Of course, elephants run amok and stuff. Elephants can fight other elephants, it happens. So, and then they have a chariot section. They only have light chariots in here. And I think that makes sense because you probably don't have a whole lot of heavy chariots like you would in the, I guess, the more Bronze Age and earlier age. So they have some chariot rules in there. And like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into them. But it does this. So there's my farmstead with a beautiful Celtic chariot just flying by it. Yeah, that's right. He's running off to stop the enemy from taking his farmland. Alright, well, that's all I want to do for this video today. I've been a bit busy, so I just wanted to go through this part of the walkthrough. It's not really informative, more so than it is like, okay, there's traits and weapons and armor you have to take into consideration. Here's some small points. Now read through the rest yourself. And also, you do get access to elephants and light chariots. But to me, those are very specific, and I think I went through the very basics of what every army will have. Every army will be slightly different, so yeah, just look it up for yourself and apply it to the walkthrough rules in the rule book that we put in before. What I want to do next time, though, is I want to try and put it all together, and I think I'm going to follow something similar here. I'll just do a quick flip through of what they're doing here, where they basically talk about putting all the rules together, and I think this will be a lot more, I think, informative. It won't be, I hope, as long as my other videos, but maybe this, when we put everything in together, we can walk through their rulebook example. I'll be using different troops, and then we can try maybe multiple units of what I can put together. I don't have many guys on a single basis, but we'll see what we can do. But yeah, that's what we're going to look at next time. Putting it all together, get some dice actually rolling, and see how the game pans out instead of me just showing examples and talking through everything. So I want to thank you all for watching today, and we will be back in the next time, or rather. So I want to thank everyone for watching, and we will be back with more Clash of Spears walkthrough videos, and soon we'll be doing more gaming and stuff. Yeah, have a good one.